Hello friends and loved ones, and welcome to another Pointless Persona Picks, the show where I highlight 5 of the best instances of whatever I think is worth discussing. Because while it may seem pointless, even the smallest thing has the potential to offer up something incredible. Since I'm looking at concepts far and wide throughout all of Persona, consider this your spoiler warning for the series as a whole. Okay, full disclosure about this video. See, at the very end of 2025, the Fitness Boxing Twitter account posted this teaser image obviously setting up some sort of Persona 5 fitness boxing experience. And with the Persona 30th anniversary site already up and running and promising an update on January 8th, I, along with many others, assumed this meant we might soon get an announcement of a Persona 5 fitness boxing game. It really wasn't that far-fetched of an assumption, even if I personally thought a Like a Dragon fitness boxing would make a lot more sense. I just figured if Fist of the North Star and Hatsune Miku could both get standalone fitness boxing games, was Persona 5 really so unreasonable? Especially now as we're jumping into the 30th anniversary of the series, where any wild or unique project could jump out at us? Yeah, apparently yes, because it turns out they weren't making a full-on Persona 5 fitness boxing game, and instead just releasing some P5 related DLC for Fitness Boxing 3, which came out in late 2024. Here's the thing though, because I was operating under the possibility of a Persona 5 fitness boxing game, even letting myself get a little excited about the idea and potential of it if I'm being honest, I started working on this video, and I actually liked how it turned out and I wanted to finish it, even after the news of the DLC dropped. So I'm re-recording this intro to explain this situation, and I hope you'll all enjoy the rest of the video with the context that it was supposed to be in celebration of a Persona 5 fitness boxing game announcement, and not just a DLC pack with some P5 music and cosmetic t-shirts. Truthfully, I actually enjoy the fitness boxing games. I played a lot of the first one, I had a huge crush on Lyn, and I honestly did find it to be a fun and engaging workout experience. So I'm here today to talk about my top 5 punches in the Persona series. Because in a franchise where you summon supernatural physical manifestations of your own psyche, sometimes you still gotta rely on good old-fashioned fisticuffs. To help narrow down this list and give you all a rough idea of what factors I was considering, here are a few basic rules for Ringside Manor. Number 1, I'm only counting narrative punches, so nothing related to gameplay mechanics. Even if that means that sadly, yes, Akihiko slamming his opponent onto the earth and then punching them straight down from space is ineligible. Number 2, we have to actually see the punch happen. I really like the moment in Persona Trinity Soul when we learn that Shin confronted the guys who were doing shadow extraction on Konoru, and it's a nice reveal that he got punched in the face over it, but we don't actually get to see that punch happen. I also debated the moment in Ultimax when Sho is just absolutely pummeling Adachi. We see the raised fist, we hear the sound effects, and the text clearly says Adachi is getting punched, but we're not actually seeing the punch itself. And lastly, number 3, the punch has to specifically be one character punching another, so no Kanemata punching the ground in an emotional wreck. With that out of the way, grab your mouthguard and remember to stretch before your big bout while we check out these spectacular strikes and jaw-dropping jabs. Let's get started. Starting off our list, we have the first of 2 Persona 4 punches, with Yu punching Yosuke at the Samegawa riverbank at the end of the Magician's Social Link. Unfortunately, the game cuts to white, so we don't really get to see the punch in the game outside of this nice little Rocky 3 freeze frame ending shot. But wait, I hear you asking, doesn't that immediately violate one of your very own rules? Even if it did, I'm keeping it in here because we do get to see the punch properly thanks to the Persona 4 anime. I have this entry at number 5 because while I do think the fight between them is good, and it's cool to see Yosuke awaken to his ultimate persona after the fact, a problem I have is that Yosuke's feelings of jealousy and inadequacy about being Yu's second banana and wanting to live up to his respect didn't really feel earned. Like, that's kind of a problem I have with the Persona series putting party member growth in the social links in general. It doesn't acknowledge any issues or concerns these characters may have experienced throughout the plot because it can't, because technically you can max out Yosuke's link by the second dungeon if you wanted to. Still, it's a memorable punch and one worthy of this list, and I'm eager to see how it plays out in Revival when that game comes out. Also, seeing Yosuke get decked was on my Christmas list. Akihiko and Shinjiro are one of my favorite pairs in the franchise. Getting to see them interacting in a more casual environment is honestly one of the highlights of Persona Q for me. But in the main Persona 3 story, we see a strain on a lot of their interactions. They'd been going through this song and dance for months, where Akihiko tries to get Shinjiro to come back, while they both have some issues that they're projecting onto the other person. Their scenes together are usually pretty brief, with Shinjiro brushing Akihiko off, while the latter acknowledges when it's time to take that step back. But there's one moment where Akihiko has had enough. And that's after learning that Shinjiro has been taking persona suppressants that will likely kill him. It was one thing for Shinjiro to simply be wasting his life, but knowing that his best friend is potentially throwing it away entirely sends him over the edge. Shinjiro tells Akihiko that he's sick of his preaching, and Akihiko knows words aren't enough right now, so we get that powerful punch. Despite Akihiko's strength, Shinji barely reacts to it. He doesn't get angry or fights back. He probably felt like it was something he deserved. Shinjiro knew for a while now that he was going to die, and shortly after this punch, it's pretty clear that Akihiko knows it too, but understands what Shinjiro needs to do before that happens. It's a solid emotional scene, and that punch plays a part in elevating it above their other earlier, somewhat more civil disagreements. I do want to say I thought this scene was a bit worse in Reload. The general lighting makes it feel less intense. Shinjiro has a much more obvious reaction to getting hit that, ironically, I think weakens the punch, and I think it's really unnerving how nobody around them even reacts to it happening, when in the original games people were like, "Oh dang," and awkwardly shuffled off. Facing your true self is a big and important part of Persona 4. Throughout the story, we see characters embrace who they are in their own way, whether it's admitting they aren't as altruistic as they were fooling themselves into thinking they were, or acknowledging that they may have some selfish desires that make them feel like bad people. Of course, one of the hardest to forget is Kanji Tatsumi punching his own shadow right in the face. Or in the tibia? The angle is a bit weird, and the game does admittedly cut to white at the moment of impact, to the point where I debated if it was still eligible for this video, but much like with our number 5 spot, we do get to see that punch happen in the anime, even if it plays out slightly differently. What I love about this moment is that Kanji punching his shadow self isn't just a primal response. It's not him lashing out physically and trying to deny it. Even before his fist flew, Kanji had already internally admitted that this was a part of who he is, and that punch was more or less his way to prove it to himself. As he says, "Anyone who looks like me, I know they ain't so weak that they can't take a punch." In the same way that Kanji's shadow forces him to acknowledge his inner self, that punch allowed Kanji to more or less force the shadow to acknowledge its outer capabilities, and in doing so create a mutual acceptance. It was a truly great and fantastic Persona Awakening moment, while also giving us one of the best punches in the series. Also, yeah, Kanji is just one of my all-time favorite characters, so of course this was going to make the list. I will always work in more Kanji where I can. Even if you haven't played the games for yourself, most people are aware that Persona 2 Innocent Sin ends with Philemon, the powerful cosmic being that bestows personas upon humanity in the first place, offering to change a specific moment in the past to create the entirely new timeline of Persona 2 Eternal Punishment, which is presumably the timeline that the main series is still in to this day. I'm not going to go too deep into what all happens to warrant such a drastic course of actions like resetting the timeline of the past decade or so, but most of your party acknowledges that it's for the best and are willing to give up what they were able to build together in the Innocent Sin timeline. Until eventually, Philemon and Tatsuya stand alone, with Philemon telling him that this may be the last time they'll see each other for a while if there's anything else he wants to say. And in that moment, Tatsuya, very understandably given everything that just happened, decks this all-powerful being right in his smug, oddly familiar face. Now, admittedly, you don't have to choose to punch Philemon, and instead you can just thank him for everything, but like, come on, who picks that option? It's a tense, emotional climax, and I think Tatsuya as a character reaching that boiling point and having the courage to throw a punch to this type of cosmic being is a big part of what gave him the strength and determination to try and fix things in Eternal Punishment in the first place. Okay, technically this punch, or more specifically these punches, violate my no gameplay rule, but I'm giving them a pass because it is still narrative gameplay, like you do have to do it. At the very end of Persona 5, the Phantom Thieves fight Maruki and his persona, Azathoth. Maruki even awakens to his own ultimate persona in the form of Adam Kadmon. These are incredible battles that wrap up the end of one of the best story arcs in the series in my eyes. But there's one final moment that we're focusing on here. As Maruki's palace comes crumbling down around them, he stands face to face with Ren. They're both battered, bruised, and too exhausted to even summon their personas at this point, especially with the unstable metaverse. These powerful characters who formed an unbreakable bond but still stood in opposition knew there was only one thing left to do: continue to fight it out until they can truly end this with no regrets. No weapons, no personas, these two just exchanging languid blows. If I could change anything about this scene, I'd have probably kept Maruki in his rebellion attire, or had Joker also revert back to his normal clothes, just so it felt more like they were on even footing. But I also acknowledge that perhaps it's intentional that Maruki appears weaker and more beaten down by this point. I want to be clear, you can't lose this fight, there's no risk, but the game showcases how far they're both willing to go. Each set of back and forth blows showcases the characters closer and closer to utter collapse. Maruki's pained voice crying out that he gave up everything and still failed is truly heartbreaking, until eventually he can't even throw another punch for his goals. Persona 5 Royal is a huge game where you dish out a lot of attacks throughout the course of it, but these always felt like some of the most impactful to me, and I'm proud to call it the #1 punch. Man, what an amazing scene. Alright, and there you have it, my top 5 punches in the Persona series. Did I ignore some that you think should have made this list? Was it unfair of me to discount gameplay ones? How would your list be different? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below, and feel free to drop your suggestions for future pointless Persona picks lists. From pillows to parasols, I'm willing to see what I can find. So until next time, take care.